Hey guys, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Saying about okay. Now there is a difference, I think, between the left and the right. When you ask a question to those on the right, you get a straight answer. But if you ask somebody on the left, you do not get a straight answer. Matter of fact, you don't even get an answer to the question. And this happens on many, many occasions. Democrat, liberal, far left, Marxist, communist, Marxist, they're all the same. They're all the same. And they do not answer questions. They give you a non answer, basically. And when I saw this interview with Tucker Carlson, I thought this is a perfect example of liberals not answering questions with an answer to the question. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to call attention to it. So watch.
Well, the president has threatened to close the U.S.-Mexico border and cut aid to various Central American countries in response to the massive caravan of migrants making its way slowly up from Mexico. Secretary of Defense General Jim Mattis has also ordered hundreds of U.S. troops, about 800, to the U.S.-Mexico border in anticipation of their arrival. Roberto Hernandez is an immigration advocate who lives in San Francisco. He says he's happy the migrants are coming. He joins us tonight. Roberto, thanks very much for coming on. I don't expect to convince you to change your views on immigration. We've talked many times, I know what they are. But I applaud you for being more honest than most on the left in saying out loud what you really want. So I want to use you to inform our viewers about the aims of the left. Tell me what the justification for this group coming here is. If they wanted asylum, they could have applied in the embassy in Tegucigalpa. They're instead coming to our border. Are they claiming that they're refugees, fleeing a war? If so, what war? What is the justification for this?
Good evening. First of all, let's go to our history. Here.
No. Let's not go to our history because that is not what was asked. Tucker Carlson is talking about now, not historically.
In the Americas.
No, let's not. Let's just go to the question.
Thank you, Tucker.
Look at all the Europeans that came here. This was.
We're not talking about the Europeans who came here back in the 1890s. That was legal immigration going through proper channels.
Native American land, and Europeans came here.
Okay.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, which is people coming north from other countries illegally through Mexico to go through our border.
Demonstrated an ignorance of history sufficient that I don't want you trying to educate us. And then I just want you to answer my question about right now.
Yeah, see, he's not doing that. He's not answering the question right now. He's trying to teach a history lesson instead of answering the question.
If that's okay, if we just stick to the question, what is the justification, the legal justification, for these people coming to our border and not the U.S. Embassy in Tegucigalpa?
See, that's a great question. What is the justification that these people, instead of going through the proper channels, through embassies and applying for citizenship, which is what you do when you're fleeing your country and you want a better life, but instead they were heading to the border to burst through the front door without being invited in?
Well, if you look at the role of the United States in Central America, in
What's that got to do with it?
Nicaragua, in Honduras, in Guatemala, and other countries in Latin America, the United States has promoted wars.
Again, if that's true, Why would they want to come to a country that's promoting wars, number one? And number two, again, why won't they go through proper channels?
To protect corporate interests in a lot of these countries. And so you have a lot of people who have been affected by these wars, and it's caused poverty in a lot of these countries. And
Okay, go with your argument. Okay, let's say you're going with your argument, which is fine. Then apply legally through the embassy. If you feel that justified, then go through legal channels. Don't go bursting through the front door without being invited in.
currently is a political climate in a lot of these countries, and people are coming here looking for refugee.
Okay, we're still going with the same argument. They're coming in as refugees looking for a better life. Fine. Then go through legal channels through the embassy and apply for citizenship. That's what you do, and that's what millions of people did when they want a better life.
So
And
let's
welcome
hold on.
these
No, okay,
people.
I'm going to try
The
and
fact
take you
is that
seriously.
The United Nations is
What- okay.
Okay, the United Nations. What does the United Nations have to do with this? Okay, the United Nations have nothing to do with this. The question is about the justification, which he's still not answering, of people barging in through the border instead of going through proper channels through the embassy where they're coming from, which is the way to do it.
supporting.
Okay.
Did you know that?
But-
That the United Nations
Well, it
is
doesn't.
out there right
Nothing the
now.
United Nations does matters to me or
Volunteering
surprises
and
me. But
helping
let me hold on.
people get
Let me just
here
ask you.
through the caravan.
I'm trying to take you seriously. You said most of them in the first caravan are coming from Honduras. What war specifically are you talking about that the United States promoted? Whose interests were benefiting from that war, and when did that war end? What are you talking about specifically?
Specifically, look at the role of the U.S. government in Honduras.
That is not the war. What war is that? He asked you a specific question. What was the war? When did it end? You know, what war is he talking about?
I mean, we can go here
Right.
all day, all
What
night. but we
war
don't
are you
have that
talking
much
about?
time.
Yes,
So I
what
wanna-
war are you talking
Tell
about?
me
You
when it ended.
understand
I'm
that
trying.
okay, let me ask you this. Do you know of any involvement of the U.S. in Honduras?
That still doesn't answer the question about which war he's talking about. He brought this up. It's about a war that the United States promoted. Okay, that's your argument. That I asked, what was the war? He says this. What is the war? Tell me what war. And he's not answering.
See, what you're saying is you
don't
don't
have
really
any
know what you're.
involvement
Hold
of
on.
the US
What
in
you're
El
saying is you
Salvador,
don't really
in
know what you're
Nicaragua.
talking about, but you're throwing out a
Well,
talking
then you
point.
need to do. Then we need to have a show
Okay.
just to talk
So-
about the U.S.
Okay, Roberto,
government's.
I'm trying.
No. He's not talking about the UN. You brought up the UN, sir. He didn't bring up the UN. You did. He specifically asked you what war did the United States promote? And you have yet to answer the question. What war was it?
I'm trying.
in
I'm
Central
asking you.
America
Hold
and the
on.
rest
Stop.
of Latin
I'm
America.
asking you specifically what war in Honduras are you talking about that the United States inspired that justifies this migrant caravan? What war? When did that war end? What year? What are you talking about? Or do you not know?
What I do? Okay, let's look at
Okay.
the role of the military of the U.S. currently.
You're not answering the question. What war you're talking about? Let's talk about the military. No, what war is it? What war is it and when did it end? You're still not answering the question.
Honduras.
No, but you said there was a war. So you're
said there was a war.
totally ignorant of the history of Honduras, but you are lecturing us about our responsibility to let these people in because of a war that we started, but you can't tell us what war or what year it ended. I think that's what you're saying.
And not only that, but it's the involvement of the U.S.
Wait a minute. That's interesting. So he's admitting that he hasn't said what war and when it ended. He said, not only that, I'm talking about a war that I have not said what it was and when did it end, but there's also this. So he's agreeing what Tucker said, which was, you brought up a war, but you haven't said what it was and when it ended. And you just said, that's right. I didn't tell you what war it is, and I did not tell you when it ended. And in addition to that, he just said that.
In Honduras and Central America. We've talked about this
so
before.
obviously history is not your...
No. We didn't talk about a war. You brought up a war. We're not talking about a war. He's asking you a question about a war you brought up, that you mentioned. Okay? You mentioned a war. You brought up a war. Tucker's asking you what war it is and when it ended. So you can't say we're talking about it because he asked you a question and you haven't answered him. So you're not having a conversation about a certain war because this conversation hasn't even gotten started because you won't ask Tucker's initial question. When you don't ask a question, when you don't answer a question, then the conversation did not begin. A conversation begins when you bring up a subject, you ask a question, and it's answered, and you talk about it. That you could talk about the answer you gave, that you didn't give an answer. So the conversation is non-existent.
Let's go to something,
and that's fine with me.
I'm not sure we're disagreeing.
I think I don't really know what you're talking
currently
about. Is supporting this.
Again, we're not talking about the United Nations. We're talking about a war that you said the United States began, that justifies people, instead of going through proper channels by legal migration through the embassies, that they burst into the front door uninvited. Okay? So far we haven't gotten any answers from this guy.
Why would the United Nations be supporting and helping these people? And
not
then
account,
Trump
I
goes
can't imagine why the UN does a
says
lot of things.
that the U.S. should stop Mexico from letting these people come here.
We're going to change the category to the 200 category. Let's see if you can answer this, okay?
Because
San Francisco has now announced that illegal aliens, people who have no right to be here, will be allowed to vote in local school board elections. You live in the city. You think this is a great idea. Do you think Americans who sneak into other people's countries ought to be allowed to vote in their elections?
Well, let's look at how many white people live in Mexico. The Mexican government doesn't harass them.
That was not the answer to the question. The question was, is it okay for somebody to sneak into another person's country and be allowed to vote in the other country's election or school board? You're not answering questions. Because that's a very good question. Because if someone were to sneak into another country, you better believe it, that person will be arrested. Especially depending on what country it is. Okay?
But let's look at...
Are they allowed to vote in elections?
People did. Look how many people did not vote in this last election.
What difference does that make to the question at hand? You're talking about the people who did not vote in American election. Tucker is asking you if someone snuck into your country, that person should be allowed to vote in your country, provided that person is not a citizen to your country. And here you are saying all the people who did not vote in this country. How is that an answer to the question?
Look at the numbers.
Okay.
What
I would
does-
say, as a performance artist, you're talented, but I just want to get one straight answer. Are Americans who sneak into other people's countries without permission allowed? Do they have a right to vote in those countries' elections? Do I have a right to sneak into Mexico and announce that I get to vote there? And if you don't let me, you're a racist. Is that a human right that I possess?
So let's get it clear. In San Francisco, these
Is San Francisco in Mexico, sir? Tucker Carlson did not ask about San Francisco. Tucker Carlson said, if I snuck into Mexico, would I be allowed to vote in Mexico? And I have no business being there. And you notice he gave a long pause because he had no answer. So here he is coming up with, well, if here in San Francisco, that's not the question that he asked.
individuals that are being allowed to vote are only voting for the election for the members of the Board of Education.
Another question unanswered.
And
All right.
these
That's
people,
right.
right, should
Okay.
have the right
I
to
got it.
vote specifically
Right.
for those who are going to
Okay.
make policies and decisions affecting
get
their
it.
children.
Okay, so I asked you a couple simple questions. You couldn't come up with an answer. Text me later if those answers come to you. Okay.
Yeah. So there you have it. This is a liberal, a prime example of how liberals answer questions. They don't. They avoid answering the question and go up on tangents and give a non-answer answer. I just want to share this with you because I saw this and I said I do not own rights to this. This belongs to Fox News Incorporated. So I'm the only reason for that I'm doing this is to show you guys, share with you the difference between Republicans, conservatives, and Democrats, liberals. That Republicans, conservatives answer questions with the question at hand. Democrats don't. And I believe Tucker gave a yes-no question. Do I have a right to vote in your country though I snuck in? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question, and it deserves a yes or no answer, not an essay answer. If you did this in school, you would have flunked. Alright, anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening in. I'll see you later. Take care, guys. See you soon. Bye.